Hey friends, Nate with Keyrenter Property Management here, and thank you for checking out our newsletter for the month of March. Hope there's some good insight for you, some tips, some other educational items that you can benefit from. And today in my video, I wanted to bring back to light something that we discussed back in August of 2020 when we had Mike Anderson, who is the president of Exchange Services LLC, and he does those through Zions Bank. The 1031 exchange and the exchange process. 'Tis the season. We've got investors who are looking to level up their property, so to speak. You may be in a situation where you've got a single family home. Maybe you want to 1031 exchange that for a nicer one. Possibly the roof is at nearing end of life. You've got a couple years. You want to sell it before you need to replace it, or you've got some other priorities that you want to take advantage of to level up your investment. We've had clients that have actually sold out of their property and bought into some investments with some other folks. There are some specific ways of doing that, but I wanted to bring into light three important things to keep in mind. And just remember, I'm not a CPA. Please consult with your tax professional on this. But the things I'm going to bring up today are things that were discussed with Mike Anderson, who is the 1031 Exchange Pro. Okay, so here's item number one. Number one, know that you're going to be doing the exchange in advance of listing or selling your property. And the reason I bring this up is because sometimes when people are going to sell, they list the house and it's coming down to closing, and then they tell their agent, or they just decide at that point, hey, you know what? I really don't want to pay capital gains taxes on this property. So, let's do an exchange. Well, we're getting down to the wire. If we don't have one, it's got to be disclosed to the buyer that's buying the house. So you have to have it in the contract actually. And you got to make sure you've got the exchange intermediary set up. You've got everything set up and structured with who that is. Now, Mike Anderson with Exchange Services and Zions Bank, they are an exchange intermediary, so they can handle that process for you. But you've got to have that in advance. So you got to want to get that process started as early as you can. Number two, don't procrastinate and know the timeline. So there's a few really important things here. And Mike in the webinar, and we'll link that here below so you can actually go back and watch it in much more detail. It's about an hour long. But he shares some experiences where someone was just a day over the deadline, or even 2 or 3 hours past the midnight deadline of getting things done. And unfortunately, the IRS it's very black and white the way the tax code is written, and you either make the deadlines or you don't. There's no in between. And so here are a couple of deadlines to really keep in mind. You have 45 days from the sale of the existing rental property. And that's the sale, meaning it's funded, it's recorded. And the way the IRS looks at it is the time that the benefits of owning that property transferred to the buyer. So usually that's recorded. That's day zero. And you have 45 days. So the next day is day one. 45 days from that date to identify and get under contract the new investment property. And you can't exchange an investment property for you upgrading your own personal residence. It doesn't work like that. It's got to be an investment property. So 45 days. The second deadline is you have 180 days, not in addition to the 45 days, but inclusive of the 45 days from the date you sell to completely close on, fund, and record that new investment property, to essentially close the exchange. Okay. One thing to keep in mind is it's not the date that you sign on the new property. You have to actually fund and record that. So there have been experiences and examples where someone has signed all the paperwork on the 180th day, but the sellers of that property dragged their feet to not sign everything, so it didn't close that day. So you got to be mindful of that as well. So deadlines, really important. Number three is vacation rentals. Understanding the limits and safe harbor policies surrounding vacation rentals. And the reason I bring this up is because vacation rentals are very popular. Nightly rentals, Airbnb, and a lot of people are wanting to buy those. However, if you don't have things really well documented and you're getting past the limit of how much you can use that property for personal use and how much you're actually documenting that it's being rented out, there have been situations of investors where in the case of an audit, the IRS comes back and says, you know what, you're past the threshold of personal use. And so that we're going to deem this a personal use property and not an investment property. So we got to be careful of those limits and understand the safe harbor policies around vacation rentals. And so these are the 3 items. Again, know in advance you're going to be doing it. Be prepared. Get the paperwork, the documentation. Know the deadlines. So important to know those deadlines. And number 3, vacation rental policies, safe harbors, those sort of things for that. So that's my tip for March. Hope it's a good one. And as you're looking at potentially leveling up your property, or if you have interest in that, feel free to reach out to our team. We can help walk you through it. Reach out to Mike with Exchange Services LLC. And again, let's have some great times this spring and summer as the things are warming up and we're preparing to buy more investments or do some different things that are really helpful towards meeting our goals. Have a great one and you take care. Thanks.